Bourbon hunting is crazy these days, so here's 10 allocated bottles actually worth the hunt. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So, like I said in that little intro, bourbon hunting is admittedly a little bit crazy these days. Whether it's standing in insanely long lines, rushing to the store to get a bottle that you see posted on Facebook and finding out that it's already gone within, 10 minutes. The world of hunting whiskey right now is crowded, crazy, sometimes turns relatively ordinary people into not the most well-mannered people. Things get a little bit insane. In all of that confusion and activity, the question really is, which bottles are actually worth investing time, energy, effort, money into hunting? So, in my whiskey hunting journey so far, I've come across a good number of allocated bottles. I wanted to put together a list of 10 that I think have actually really been worth it. Ones that I put in effort, time, and money to get myself, and I feel like they've lived up to that or even exceeded my expectations. So, without further ado, let's dive into the list, and hopefully this gives you some good information to go off of while you're doing your own hunting. Okay, so we will just not pull any punches, and we'll start with the most hunted distillery out there, which is Buffalo Trace. I've got two products for you that I think are the most worth it to hunt from them, that I've tasted at least, and that is E.H. Taylor Small Batch and Weller 107. So I've been lucky enough to get my hands on about 7 or 8 different pretty allocated bottles from Buffalo Trace. Most of their stuff is allocated. E.H. Taylor Small Batch might be my single most favorite. I think at the 100 proof point, it's full of apple, cherry, rich fruits, and a good amount of sort of lingering spice that keeps it steady and holds the flavor for longer. Weller 107, similar story, a little bit higher proof. I get a lot of cinnamon, brown sugar, and I think for the effort to hunt both of these down, sometimes they're incredibly marked up, sometimes they're nearly impossible to find depending on the area you live in. For me, these are not easy to find, and I've seen them both at least double or triple MSRP at times. I think going up to $80 on either of these, and also just like the effort and the time, is worth it. Other Buffalo Trace products, Blanton's, let's just say it, Blanton's has been a disappointment to me. These two have not disappointed. All right, let's move on to another distillery that I love, one that has just never really disappointed me, Maker's Mark. And we've got two products from them, both worth hunting. They are the Wood Finishing Series and Maker's Mark Cellar Aged. So we are talking about two different categories of allocated here, that's for sure. The Wood Finishing Series, they produce a lot of this stuff. It comes out relatively regularly. I know that they're just starting up the second chapter with the Heart release here in 2024, so keep your eye out for that. But I've got about 5 of these Wood Finishing Series releases, and I think they're all really, really solid, especially for that like $65 to $70 range. Somewhat harder to find, but most ordinary people who are getting into the whiskey hunting game, me and even my first year of hunting was able to find a couple. So I think most people can find some. Then we step it up to the Cellar Aged, which came out for the first time last year. It's a 11 and 12-year-old blend, super well regarded, super highly sought after, much more difficult to find and get your hands on. But I do think it's a really, really good whiskey. I believe this came in second place in my Whiskey of the Year bracket in 2023. So the quality is there. And if you're gonna go after sort of a big kahuna in 2024, might not be a bad idea to make it Maker's Mark Cellar Aged. All right, next is a kind of outlier bottle. It's a craft distillery. Actually, probably should have paired it with Buffalo Trace to keep it in that sort of family line, but that is John J Bowman Single Barrel. So this is Buffalo Trace distillate that's then shipped out to A. Smith Bowman Distilling in Virginia, where they distill it again, age it I've had people say that this is probably 6 to 8 years old. I've had others and online sources say it might even be like 9 to 10 years old. Whatever it is, it's really good, and I think it's better than Blanton's. I think it's a lot better than Blanton's, at least the one that I have. So if you're gonna hunt one of those more allocated, hard to find whiskeys, you're looking for a Buffalo Trace alternative, I think John J Bowman single barrel for around $65 is an absolute hitter. So I would have no qualms about recommending you go out and try to find this one. All right, made some room for the back half of our list here, and we will start that with one of my favorite distilleries, Heaven Hill. If you've been following the channel, you're not going to be surprised at all by these next two picks, and that is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof and Larceny Barrel Proof. So these two bottles are tri-annual releases. They come out 3 times a year from Heaven Hill, A, B, and C batch. Always worth keeping an eye out for. Larceny Barrel Proof MSRP is $65. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is $75. And here's the story for you. The floor on these bottles, the lowest common denominator, is always good. You're always going to get a good whiskey. The ceiling on these bottles is astronomically good. These batches can sometimes be so phenomenally good, it's kind of crazy for the price. I had Larceny Barrel Proof win my 2022 Whiskey of the Year, and Elijah Craig won my 2023, the legendary C923 batch. That goes to show you, it's always worth kind of putting in the little effort to hunt down these different batches, keep your ears and your eyes peeled for, you know, which particular batches seem to be really going off in the whiskey community, and then go out and hunt those down. But even if it's just a regular sort of middle of the road batch, it's probably worth picking up for somewhere around MSRP if you can. Okay, next on the list brings us into another distillery that I really love. It's not technically allocated, I don't think. It's just sort of spotty, and you never know which recipe you're gonna get. If you can already guess what that is, it is Four Roses Single Barrel Barrel Proof. So there's 10 recipes to try in this series. I've tasted all 10 recipes through their tasting kit, but I've had 2 particular barrel strength options, and both are really, really good for around $100. These are a little bit more special, a little bit harder to find, and just fun to collect. I haven't been disappointed yet, so I would highly recommend you adding one to your collection if you can, keeping your eyes peeled. Sometimes these are store picks. If you have a store near you that does regular picks, keep an eye out for whether or not they do a Four Roses single barrel strength option. Maybe inquire if they ever plan to do one, because man, they are quite good. Okay, moving on to our next bottle, which takes us into the real craft territory. A phenomenal release from a distillery that a lot of people in the whiskey community like, but still seems to fly under the radar, and that is Redwood Empire, their bottled in bond releases. This is the Rocket Top Rye. They also have the Grizzly Beast. That's their bourbon. By golly, is this some good stuff. For me, this particular Rocket Top Rye is full of like cotton candy sugars, and really interesting and different from any other rye that I've tasted. These are a little bit more expensive, usually in that like $90 range, but honestly, for a craft distillery releasing something of this quality, I think it's worth it. It's also a beautiful presentation and just worth the little extra effort it takes to find these. These are more limited, definitely small batches of these things come out, but as they release more and more of these batches year after year, I think you have a decent chance of finding one if you put in a little extra effort, and I do think it's worth it. All right, last but not least on my list is one that I actually got lucky winning a lottery to get, but I think now that I've tasted it, I know that it's worth hunting, and that is Mters 10-year-old rye. So if you've been following the channel, you'll also know that I have kind of an interesting relationship with Mters. I don't love any of their standard releases. Feel like they all sit in that $45 range and they're low proof, and I'm not sure if the quality is fully there. that is a totally different story when it comes to this 10-year-old rye. It's quite simply probably the best rye I've ever tasted. It is expensive. I think I paid $185 or something like that for this. You'll sometimes see it marked up for quite a bit more than that. But again, the quality backs it up. So if you're one of those people that's still waiting for a Mters bottle at this caliber, looking for a 10-year-old rye, a 10-year-old bourbon, from my experience, I can assure you that it's worth hunting because the quality is there. It's backed up by some incredible whiskey. All right, everybody, that's gonna do it. Those are 10 allocated bottles that I consider worth the hunt, worth the extra effort, the time, the money to go out and get. Hopefully that kind of orients you in the whiskey hunting game and gives you a sense of what might be most worth it to focus your attention on and strive to grab and add to your own collection. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this list of 10 bottles? Are there any that I missed or that you consider, the most worth it from your own whiskey hunting journey? While you're at it, hit the like button on this video. And then if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. Plan to release a lot more great content throughout all of 2024. Until I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.